the fact is we all have a purpose and maybe multiple purposes in our life. We weren't just created to live and breathe and pay taxes and die at some point. We were created for a purpose.
Hey, it's Nikki, Llewellyn Gregory, and you're on Gut Plus Science. You're in for a fast-paced, storytelling, action item-rich leadership growth experience. I hope you make this podcast a habit. I consider it a leadership mentoring tool. Learning together makes us better together, and that is how we change the world around us. Let's get to it.
Hey, it's Nikki, and we're back on Gut Plus Science. Today, we're diving into a conversation that sits at the center of everything we believe in at Gut Plus Science: human connection as the engine of great leadership. And my guest today, Mark A. Mears, is a multiple-time C-suite executive, incredible brands that he's worked with, keynote speaker, and a best-selling author who has spent his career studying what makes organizations truly thrive. His first book, The Purposeful Growth Revolution, helped leaders reimagine growth from the inside out. And now he's taking that work even further with his newest book, Love at Work. It's a bold call to place love in its most human and actionable form back at the center of leadership. This isn't soft stuff. This is the work that moves cultures, strengthens teams, and drives results. In this conversation today, we're going to be exploring the spark behind the second book, how Mark's thinking has evolved, and the framework he believes can transform every workplace. So if you care about building a culture where people feel seen, supported, and inspired to grow, which I know you do because you're on Gut Plus Science and that's what we do here, you're going to love today's conversation. Here's what we're focused on: love at work, how leaders transform through human connection. So Mark, I remember talking to you when we were first meeting, and you said, I never even had it on my radar to write a book. And yet here you are. You're right now in the thick of the exciting release of the second book. Tell us why. Like, what's behind the author in you?
Yeah, that's truly a great story, and I wish we had time for all of it, but I'm going to try to cut to the chase to say that, to your point, I spent the better part of 7 years in corporate America as kind of a corporate America team guy, as a marketing and someone who's been involved in executive management, from president to chief marketing officer, for a variety of different concepts. But an epiphany hit me, I would say, February 21st, 2013. And it was the morning after one of the darkest moments of my career. I had just been unceremoniously let go from a president role of a concept that was $500 million, casual dining in Southern California. And a new company had bought our brand from our parent company and had said all the right things about keeping me and my team. And that's why we bought the brand. And don't worry, we're not going to do any changes other than, refine some things here and there. So we thought we had found our rightful owner. And the deal closed on a Friday. A Monday morning, I have a meeting with the new CEO of our joint entity at 8:00. So I show up to the meeting, and it switched from his office to a conference room. And I walk in, and I see someone from HR in the corner. And I say, Jim, in different circumstances, I would have reason to be worried, wouldn't I? He said, well, you better sit down. 5 minutes later, I'm out the door. We've decided to move in a different direction. And I said, what, over the weekend? So I went home and I called my then wife at the time, said, so that just happened. And after a fitful night of sleep, I get up the next morning and remember this February 21st in Southern California. That's about the time the first signs of spring start to emerge. And as I took the dog out back to do his business, and the sun was coming up over this walnut we had in our backyard, and it shone on this fig tree that was barren from the 5 or 6 weeks of winter we do get in Southern California. But Nikki, there on the end of one branch was a tiny little green sprig of a leaf just starting to bud. And it was there I got this epiphany that a leaf is a symbol of growth and rebirth. And so I took the dog inside and I went into my office and started working on my computer, banging out a treatment for this idea that leaf is a symbol of growth and rebirth. Then I also thought, I had been managing with the rule of threes. I'm sure you've heard of it. People think if you focus on three things, people can understand it. They can focus on what it takes to get success in each of those areas. And my three things were leadership, engagement, and accountability. And I use that as my mantra. We were in a turnaround situation with the brand. We needed great leadership up and down the line. We needed to engage people's head, heart, hands, and habits to our success. And we needed to hold ourselves and our teammates accountable for results, as we were part of a publicly traded company at the time. So that was my mantra. I would say, Nikki's doing a wonderful job of leadership. Look at the results her team is getting. Or Nikki's doing a wonderful job of engaging her teammates in a deeper level, and look at the results they're getting. Or she's holding her team accountable for results, and man, look at the progress that their teams are making. And so leadership, engagement, and accountability, everyone knew that was my mantra. So here I am this morning after sitting at a computer very much like this one going, so what was wrong? What did I miss? And I wrote down that leadership, engagement, accountability, and it hit me at that moment. What was missing for me was fulfillment. And I wrote fulfillment down. And there I saw this acronym: leadership, engagement, accountability, and fulfillment. It stems from LEAF, the source of all growth in a plant or a tree, as we learned in middle school science, comes from the leaf through the magic of photosynthesis, right? So I started writing this stuff down. And then I said, well, how does this kind of fit? And I created this 4-circle Venn diagram because I got to thinking about the 4 seasons. And I started thinking, well, this rule of threes apparently didn't work. And that's where fulfillment came from. So then I started to believe in the higher power of 4s. There are 4 seasons, not 3. There are 4 directions, not 3. There are 4 chambers to the human heart, not 3. There are 4 elements to the atom, the source of all life, not 3. And I could go on and on with this foreplay, but you get the idea, right? So that became the epiphany that led to my first book, The Purposeful Growth Revolution: 4 Ways to Grow from Leader to Legacy Builder. And if you look closely at that tree, the trunk and branches are a hand reaching up to the leaf, which is where growth occurs. So that got me going on this journey of promoting the book. It became a bestseller. I'm doing speaking, I'm doing consulting, all around this idea of revolutionary growth. Who doesn't want to grow, right? We all do. We either grow or we die, right? And I'm a growth junkie. I love growth in all of its forms: personal, relational, professional, and spiritual. And I love learning about it too, which then literally 4 months later gave me another epiphany that happened in February of 2023. And I was working on my LinkedIn monthly newsletter. You all should subscribe. It's pretty good. And I was thinking, I want to be relevant to to February, the month that I was working on. And I thought, well, Valentine's Day is the centerpiece of the season of love. And I wrote down love on a piece of paper. I'm still very analog, sorry. And I get ideas in this notebook that has carried throughout my career, and you can barely hold on to it because it's all craggly and whatnot. But a lot of good ideas have come through that, including the first book. So then I wrote down love, and in that moment, I got another epiphany that love was an acronym, a model, if you will, a new leadership model that stands for listen, observe, value, and empower. That are 4 fundamental human traits we all share, but oftentimes find missing in the workplace. And so I thought, this may be a new idea, and I wrote it for my newsletter, and I got a ton of engagement. But I put it aside because I'm still promoting my first book and still using that for speaking, consulting, and whatnot. But it kept gnawing at me. And so I got to seeing research that would support the thesis. So the next February rolls around, and I say, okay, I'm going to reprise that since it got so much, engagement. I'm going to now add this new research that supports it even further. And I got even more engagement. And now people were saying, Mark, this is a book concept. Have you thought about? And I, oh, no. I'm one and done. I wrote one book. I never fancied myself an author. I took the epiphany that I felt like I was given, and I faithfully followed it to its conclusion. I've never done something so hard in my whole life. I'm not going back there. But over that rest of that year, it was again eating at me. And I felt this tug in my heart that I've got to do this. I've got to turn this into a book. So January of this past year, I went all in and I announced that 2025 is going to be the official year of love. And I announced that I was writing this book. So now I've spoken it into the universe. I now am being held accountable. How are you doing with the book you're working on, Mark? And so I faithfully followed that nudge until it just recently got released. And I'm happy to report that I just found out today it's hit bestseller status.
Yay. Such a big deal. That's amazing. I remember when we first met, I was learning about your background and your passion, and you had shared this story. And I remember thinking exactly what I'm thinking right now. There's so much power as a human, our surrendering to what is being called of us. Like we are so aligned that we are tapped in to see the signs of, for example, you shared so many of them. And I was inspired when I heard it the first time. I'm inspired again, walking outside and seeing that new growth, that new leaf that's coming. And then understanding that, you know, I actually have a tattoo on my arm. I'm never going to see it, be a vessel. Really that was a calling for you. When I opened this up, you said you never wanted to be an author. And now you're on your second book. It is this strong message of awareness that we are here to walk in alignment. We have this purpose. And if we can tap in, all of the signs are there, almost sometimes to a scary point where it's like, wait. But that is what we're all called to figure out, right? That alignment. And I remember how powerful when I first met you, that inspired me, and it's inspiring me again. And that is for all people. Anyone that is listening right now, you have that opportunity too, to, surrender and really tap in and be aware and be conscious, because there's so much good coming, right? And you're the vessel of that. So thank you for sharing that before we go into more of the love at work.
Thank you for recognizing that. And thank you for reinforcing the fact. And I say the fact is we all have a purpose and maybe multiple purposes in our life. We weren't just created to live and breathe and pay taxes and die at some point. We were created for a purpose. I heard a TED talk recently from a gal on stage talking about how hokey that was and how that is really not true. And I was like stunned. And all these people in the audience were clapping. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Her thesis was that's too much pressure, that we have to allow us to be ourselves instead of feeling pressure to have some purpose to fulfill. And I don't look at it as pressure. I look at it as a gift. And for me, I look at it as a gift from above. And I feel like when we're living in our purpose, we're lit up like Christmas trees. We're burning fireballs of energy and excitement, and that energy is palpable. The fact that you said you felt it when we first talked, I could tell across the Zoom you felt it. That lights me up because I don't want to keep this all to myself. It'd be like hiding your light under a bushel, as it says in the Bible, instead of putting it on the lampstand and putting it up for everybody to see and be illuminated. And so I believe very strongly in the power of purpose. And I believe very strongly that it may not hit you immediately as an epiphany, but I also understand and believe that you have to be open to it. Not only your eyes and ears, but your heart must be open to receive what may be the gift of your lifetime.
Yes, yes, and yes. I stand behind that. I believe it is our greatest use of self when we tap in to see the signs and follow the guidance and just know, like, there's something so much bigger than us. We're here to provide contribution, and when you figure out that contribution and you get to work in that, there's nothing better than that, and everyone else rises because of it. And that could be a whole podcast, but we want to talk more about Love at Work, your new book that just hit bestseller today, the day we're recording.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. Before
Yes.
we dive in more to the acronym, I want to understand your the way that you see love at work, and I want to approach this from a couple different angles, like kind of here's the philosophy. This is what it looks like in action because Mark, I'm sure you've had this before. People will say, "Well, that's not for the workplace. I mean, that's for at home or with my kids or spouse." And there's different versions of love, right? Of course, but can you just lay the context? What does love at work mean?
Yeah, great question. And I've gotten that. It's like, those of us of a certain age grew up in what was considered and is still out there a command and control management style. Salute and execute. And the history of it comes from GIs from World War II who returned and got into business. And what worked for success in the military was a very hierarchical command and control style. That's how wars are won, missions are accomplished, and lives are saved. And that's wonderful. And it actually has worked in the workplace for a number of years. We think about some leaders who have written books that would be considered very command and control, from Jack Welch at GE to Lee Iacocca at Chrysler back in the 80s, even to more recent times, Steve Jobs at Apple, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, and even Elon Musk have become command and control, which is I've got the vision. I'm going to basically will it to happen through all the realms of influence that I control. Well, that word control is not working today for younger generations. They don't want to be managed and required. They want to be led and inspired. And so we have to change and transform that tired old hierarchical command and control management style that no longer serves us into a more purposeful, more relational, and more humanistic leadership approach, and really important for the benefit of all stakeholders, our teammates, our customers, our business partners, and the communities we serve. People today want purpose. The research is saying 89% of millennials and Gen Z want purpose in both their life and their work. We are awake a third of our life, and we work a third, and what we do on our own the other third. But why not 2/3 of all of our waking hours we're living on purpose? And so that really starts us thinking about the workplace. And then I saw research from the Sloan School of Management at MIT that back after what was called the Great Resignation, they went and asked 34 million people who'd left the workforce during that time, that post-COVID time. And I think COVID gave us all a bit of a time out to reflect deeply on not only what, but who matters most in our life. And when we started to be released from sheltering in place and people were allowed to go back to work, people were like, I'm not going back. And when they asked the question of 34 million people, why did you leave the workforce? The number one answer, Nikki, by 10x more than the second most given answer, was toxic work environment. It's as if the old network news movie, Peter Finch is out the window going, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And everybody around did the same thing. We're not going to take it anymore. And we have options today that we didn't have back when I was coming up in the workplace, right? And so all of a sudden now you've got people making different choices. They're like, I'm not going back to that. Or if they're there, you've heard the term quiet quitting. And or now most recently, because the market's turned a bit and there aren't as many opportunities, now you've got what's called job hugging. I need the paycheck and I don't want to get fired, but I'm just not engaging. So we now have historic low levels of engagement in the workforce. It's costing trillions of dollars across the world. And while the United States has a higher degree of engagement than other countries, we're still at historic lows. So how do you get someone engaged? How do you get them to care? How do you get them to give a damn, right? Well, you've got to tap into their purpose. You got to tap into what lights them up. You got to include them in the conversation and not just talk around them like it's kids at the Thanksgiving table, right? You've got to, even the younger people want to be engaged in the process, and they have ideas. And so there's a lot of conflicting, but yet confluent types of things, if you allow them to be, that are going on right now. We have now 6 generations in the workforce for the first time in history. We can all learn from each other, right? So there's a whole section in the book about cogeneration, about learning from each other. And there's 2 kinds of AI. We hear about artificial intelligence in the news every single day, and that gives us scaled knowledge. But the other AI is appreciative inquiry, which gives us shared wisdom. And so the ability to combine both of them are going to allow us to attain my goal, which is to put the human back in human resources. And I say to do that, all we need is love.
So good. When I think about a loving leader, I think it's someone that leads with intention to make people better because of their influence. And I use the word influence because it's not necessarily the doing, it is the impact of, genuinely caring for them, seeing things in them that they don't see in themselves. They borrow your belief as a leader to build and to take those, kind of scary next steps and step outside the box, and you follow through on your word. It's like, sometimes I going back to where people get funny about love at work. It's like that's really what it is. Like, you really care and you really want to see these people grow and develop. You genuinely care about them. And I want to now go into, you shared the forward acronym for love. I want you to go into why those four.
Yeah, I think again, it goes back to if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can just talk about just what has been around since centuries. We all need to feel seen and heard, valued for who we are as a whole person, not a worker or employee ID number, but importantly, empowered to grow into our full potential. And when we do and feel those 4 things, we feel like we're not in a culture, we're in a community. And during your introduction, I appreciated that you used the word culture a couple of different times. And a culture's not bad, but think about the fact that words matter. Words lead to intentions that manifest in plans that result in actions, right? And I'll go take it a step further, that end up as feelings. I don't care what industry we're in the people business. And to be successful in the people business, we have to be in the feelings business. It was the late, great poet Maya Angelou who said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you've done, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And so that led me to think about those 4 words and take them a step further to say the what and the how that leads to the why. So think about listening. You listen graciously to ultimately build trust with your team. Trust is the foundation of any solid, healthy relationship, right? Observe generously to invest in your team. It takes time to truly observe somebody, coach them, mentor them, critique them to succeed, right? But when you do that and someone feels invested in, now they're going to be more engaged. They're going to have higher quality of output and more productivity, and they'll stay longer, and they'll be possibly a net promoter for your firm, right? And then value. How do we want to value? We want to value gratefully to show appreciation from our team. That whole idea of valuing someone as a whole person, and then when they show positive results, you want to appreciate them. But how? In some cookie cutter way where everybody gets a coffee mug or a t-shirt or a sports bottle? No, you want to find out what lights them up and demonstrate appreciation in the way they feel most motivated. And then you want to empower generatively to help your teammates grow. Again, growth is fundamental to all of life. People want to grow and learn, right? Giving them opportunities to grow into their full potential. You do these 4 things: listen, observe, value, and empower. No one's going to quietly quit that. No one's going to want to leave that for another job that may pay, a little bit more an hour or whatever. They're going to want to stay longer. They're going to be more invested in the outcome as an owner versus just, again, some faceless, nameless employee ID number, which is why I don't like the word employee. Another one I hate is employee because it sounds like someone
Yeah.
just paid to do a
Team
job.
member. I like team member.
Well, I prefer the word teammate because I used to like team member and I used it all the time until as someone who grew up in sports and other team activities, I remember being lit up when the coach would put the name of the roster on the door or who made the team, and you'd look for your name and your number and your position, right? So you play a role on the team if you're a team member. A teammate takes it a step further. A teammate helps the other team members be better. And so I happen to live in Kansas City, so I'm a big Chiefs fan. And Travis Kelsey is the tight end. He's won 3 Super Bowls so far, and yet he doesn't have to do it, but he always spends time with the other, not only the other tight ends, but the other receivers. And he takes it a step further by helping to found what's called Tight Ends University, where he sets up a 3-day event with other tight ends from other, even opposing teams. That's what it means to be a teammate, is when you invest in yourself for the benefit of others, even those who could potentially take your job one day, right? So I really believe words matter, and so often we, cavalierly throw out words and phrases that we've just heard in vernacular for years. But here's the difference. If we want to challenge an unsatisfying status quo, historic low levels of engagement, right? And we want our teammates to grow up into their full potential, we've got to change the vernacular. And so I'm on a mission to stop talking about things in the old way, but expecting different results. You got to change the wording that then leads to different intentions, that leads to different actions, that results in different feelings.
Another one that you shared that I want to dig in on a little bit more because I think it's powerful, community. We had talked about like culture or the workplace and this concept of like, what's the best state? Like, this is my people. This is my community, right? I'm part of. I love it here. Like, community says something like that. Tell me more about your thoughts on that word.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you brought that up because we touched on it, but we didn't go into the next step. So thank you for reminding me that, again, we often hear about, well, our culture is this and our culture is that. And one wag told me one day, he said, well, where I work, culture is just a word to define what we allow to get away with around here. And I'm like, whoa. And so I get to thinking on a deeper level, as I tend to do. And I look at things like a prism, and the more you twist them, the more you see different shapes and colors. And so I twist things. And oftentimes I see things in threes, but then I'll twist one more notch and I'll see the fourth element emerge. Well, in this case, I look at culture. And again, that's not a bad word, but a culture may be a place someone feels merely a part of, just to fit in. But a community is a place someone feels they belong in. Notice the word feels, right? So now we're talking about DEI in the news, and this is a bad thing. Well, it's because you're looking at it the wrong way. But diversity gets us in the room. That's great. Equity gives us an equal voice, better yet. Inclusion gets us a seat at the table. Holy cow, that's great. But here's the most important thing, Nikki. If we don't feel we belong there at that table, in that seat, in that room, we're likely not going to feel psychologically safe to be vulnerable enough to give of our very best. For fear of recrimination, if we say something stupid and maybe we get thrown out of the room, maybe it's taken us years to get in that room and in that seat. So we'll just kind of get along by getting along. You've seen the musical Hamilton. Aaron Burr says he just wants to be in the room when it happens. Well, you can't just want to be in the room. You've got to be able to share your voice. You can do that when you feel you're in community versus just in a culture, right? When you feel you belong, you are in a situation where someone's going to give you grace if you say something that may not be the bigger, best idea, or may come across a little silly when you've said it. But all of a sudden, they're going to say, well, wait a minute. There's something Mark said we can build on. What if we looked at it this way instead of that way? What if we all of a sudden the room gets excited And no one knows that Mark said something silly in the front end. All they know is they co-created a solution to a problem that they may not ever have come up with that solution if it wasn't for that vulnerable act of speaking up.
So good. I'm just gonna just throw it out there right now. This stuff is the heart and soul of a vibrant work experience. We heard the stats. That's not the stats. Vibrant work experience. We're on this other side, and anyone that's listening to Gut Plus Science, that's what we're going for. That's why we listen to this. So just keep in mind. Obviously, Mark's both of his books are amazing. We're talking about love at work, and I happen to really be tapped into this stuff. So grab both, but particularly love at work, but also thinking about for the next time that you're booking a topic that is going to inspire your people and create a ripple effect of like, dang, we're starting to feel good vibes around here and we're working on things that really matter to us and holding each other accountable. Bring Mark in as a speaker, man. Like come in and light some people up. I think that would be a really great idea. So Mark, this has been really awesome. Before we transition over to our lightning round, where I want to get to know you, the personal side of Mark, a little bit more, that'll be fun. Tell us, so the book's out. Go, grab the book. We'll put the links to both books in the show notes. Anything else that we want to share for next steps or encouraging people to take next steps? You said your newsletter. I know that. Anything else?
Yeah, a couple things on my website, markamears.com. Don't forget the A, my middle initial. There you'll find not only an opportunity to order the book directly, in which case I'm keeping this up as a special offer where it's normally $24.99 on Amazon, but I'm selling it for $20. Plus, I'm providing free shipping. Plus, I'm providing this fetching bookmark, and I'll personally sign it with a message to you. So that's an opportunity at the very top of the homepage. Underneath that, really importantly, I've created a love at work self-assessment. So it takes 5 minutes of that to fill out, and it will go through each of the love leadership model elements from listening, observing, valuing, and empowering. And it gives you then, there's 4 different aspects within each one of them that are outlined in the book. And you'll go 1 to 5, score yourself based on how you feel your manager or leader treats you in each of those different ways. Then I'll send you back a 4-color PDF with your results, and you can kind of see where maybe the gaps are. Where are things going well, and where might there need to be some work, which will allow you to set up some time with your manager or leader and have an honest conversation, because that's what we've got to have. Leaders need to understand that just because they've got a title, that makes them a boss. But a leader is a title that's earned every day. And one of the things that I've learned, and Nikki, the hard way, is the importance of humility and the importance of grace. And when I've messed up, I've come to an individual or possibly the whole team and I've apologized. That vulnerability provides trust, that then provides the opportunity to open the door that says, well, now I feel safe. I can ask Mark this question, or I could maybe say, hey, here's some counsel for you, Mark, and how you can lead me or our team better, right? Because that's the goal. It's not about, self-preservation. And too often it is. I've been in the C-suite for over 20 years, and I can tell you I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the best leaders that I've worked for are the ones that demonstrated humility and grace, and they're servant leaders. And so taking that self-assessment provides a tangible opportunity to have a tough conversation, possibly with your manager or leader. And then also, you mentioned LinkedIn. Please connect with me. I want to learn from you. I don't have all the answers. So you follow me, I'll follow you. We'll get connected and we'll share information and we'll help make each other better.
So good. Well, thank you so much, Mark. And I just have a couple of things to say before we head on into this lightning round, where we'll do a quick little fun conversation. But this story that you shared of your journey, there's a couple things. You never know where people are when they're listening, right? We all have our days and we have our bad days. And remember, Mark shared this started from a bad day, like walking into a conversation and it was not what was expected and felt like hey, I just got the rug pulled out. We had plans and caught you by surprise. Was not a good day. Sometimes those bad days are the greatest tipping points in our life. And someone right now is having a really bad day listening to this. And just as a reminder, maybe that bad day, that bad experience, bad, and I'm putting air quotes if you're just listening, could be your tipping point. And then I had, really honed in because I feel so called and inspired to help people understand every single human has the ability to be in alignment with a greater higher power that is sending you on a journey. And all you got to really do is surrender. And many times that's like sitting in the waiting room for a little bit, spending more time just doing some inner reflection. It's the deep inner work on ourselves that help us see and hear what is there for us. It's right there. It's there now. You just don't see it. And when you can get to that place that you have that guidance, there is no greater feeling than getting to do that kind of work. And then love at work, like practicing love at work where we genuinely care for people and help build them, and they will never forget how you made them feel when that experience with you leading, not managing, leading. So good. So good. So we're going to head on into the lightning round. Thank you so much for this inspiring conversation. So 3 questions. One, real quick here. If you had to pick one book, a book that changed your life or it's just very inspiring, what is that one book you'd recommend to our leaders listening?
Well, because I'm an overachiever, I'm going to give you two, but they're related. The first one is Rick Warren's Purpose Driven Life that I read back in probably the mid 90s. So I don't know, 30 years ago. And it really changed my life. And it got me thinking about what's my purpose. And then it led me into another book that I read after that incident happened. A friend gave it to me and he said, "Hey, Mark, maybe you should read this book called Hack Time by a guy named Bob Buford." And his subtitle was something that I wish I'd written, but it was Moving from Success to Significance, which really resonated with me at that point in my life and my career. I had been climbing the corporate ladder and trying to attain success as related to promotions and job titles and money and benefits and perks. And I had forgotten who I was. And I didn't realize until that I'm here on this earth for more than just that. So I created my own purpose statement, Nikki, which is I don't want to just make money and retire. I want to make a difference and inspire. And that means making a difference in the lives of others and inspiring them to want to do likewise. So it creates this virtuous cycle of reciprocity or a ripple effect. In my book, I call it paying it backward. And so that really was two books in combination, years between each other, that really gave me the impetus for what I'm doing now.
Love it. Okay. Tell us about a hobby that you do regularly, like daily, weekly.
This is my happy place. I enjoy sitting out on my back deck and doing Sudoku puzzles and crossword puzzles. I just love puzzles because I love challenges. And even though it's time for relaxing, it's still relaxing to me to still feel like I'm keeping my brain fertile. I'm learning new things, new patterns, new possibilities, because I think that whole idea of vision and connecting dots and maybe sometimes creating simplicity out of chaos and complexity, which I'm told I'm fairly good at, it allows me to continue to perpetuate that strength in a way that I find fun, relaxing, and it always feels good when you solve something and give yourself a check mark and move on.
I love that. Okay, last one, fun round here. So, what is that one thing? It's super unique that happened in your life. And when you tell people about it, they're like, wait, what? Like, what is yours?
Well, what a lot of people don't know is I slept with Demi Moore. And years ago, actually, I was on a red eye with her flying from LA to New York, and she was across the aisle from me. So she slept, I slept, we slept together.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, Mark, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to continuing the collaborations and seeing how high this love at work mission can go.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.